good. 6 watching. Hey guys, how are you doing today? Hello there, Michelle. Is admit. Got 10 of you guys in here already. Waiting on Doug. There he is, Mr. Constitution himself. Oh, he can't hear me because he's got his ears out.
Hang on. I'm watching a Weezer video.
Devil Dog.
What's up?
Oh no, I'm just saying hello to people in the comments.
I had Weezer going. I don't know how many of you out there like Weezer. I'm a fan.
Weezer? Oh yeah.
Weezer, yeah.
Yeah, Weezer. I know Weezer.
Yeah, they did a concert in 2017. And so while I was eating my lunch, I was watching that. So yes, people ask me, what do you do when you're not on the Constitution stuff? I'm watching Weezer videos.
Yeah, right. That's once in a blue moon, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I love music, but I don't get a chance to listen to it as much as I'd like.
I don't listen to it hardly at all anymore. I mean, when I'm driving when I'm driving with the top down, I'll listen to it because I can't really hear like audio. Like I try to listen to videos and audiobooks and stuff, and it doesn't really come through because of so I just have to go with the sound of the audio or the music. And lately that's been, when I have been driving, that's actually been with the top down because it's so beautiful. But I'm enjoying it while I can, because once it gets cold, then leave it up.
I usually listen to music. Sometimes I've got talk radio. Sometimes I've got nothing on. I'm just in thought. I drive with absolutely nothing on.
Yeah. I talked to Alan last week sometime. He sent me the Fed Ed thing, and I'm going to meet him on Thursday.
Okay.
I'm coming down to your class before you do it. I'm going to listen to him for about the first 45 minutes, and then I got to bail.
All right, so you'll be there to meet him and see him in action at the Beaumont class. Yeah, because that's right. This Thursday.
Yeah,
he starts that with them, and then the next week he'll start it here on the online stuff for 3 weeks.
I think we're going to
which works out good for me because I'm actually out of town next week. So the Beaumont class and this is covered. And then my Fallbrook class, the pastor was going to be out of town next week anyway. So three of them, it actually, everything worked out really well.
Well, you suggested that, and we talked, and he wanted to do 3 1-hour classes. And I said, well, I don't really have that much time because there's only a 1 week break between what you and I were going to do. And I said, but if he wants, what I'll do is I'll give him 2 hours so he can crunch 3 hours into 2 in one setting.
Yeah. So, or if the audience is okay with it, you can do 3 1-hour sessions.
Well, I'd rather not. I think that's pushing the boundaries a little bit.
Okay.
That's pushing the boundaries a little bit. I think a 1 2-hour show, one-time 2-hour show is going to be sufficient. And he'll have to cram a little bit, but I mean, if he's speaking at Red Pill Expo, he can basically. I'm going to let him have the floor, and I'll ask questions if he wants me to, but I'm gonna.
Yeah, he's spoken at the Red Pill Expo 3 or 4 times. He's done it a few times. I know of at least for sure 2, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 or 4.
I think he's speaking this year because he said he didn't. He wasn't going to do much this time. He wanted to really get involved with stuff until this Red Pill Expo was over. Brady and I wanted to drive down there to Lafayette, but I just can't because of my back. I had my MRI, by the way. Did I tell you?
Mm-mm.
I had an MRI last Tuesday, and it came back pretty bad. It's ugly. I actually have an appointment with a back specialist on Thursday afternoon in LA. Yeah, it's not good. I had an 11 millimeter herniation in L405. It's pretty bad. But anyway, we didn't hear people didn't come here.
Well, I'm doing back flips and back splits and wind sprints and
whatever.
back flips and
I know you and your cane.
now, I don't have the cane anymore.
You don't?
No.
I didn't know that. Well, I haven't seen you in a minute. So, one last before we get into class today, did Brady share with you that article from Conservative Treehouse, the Salem article, where he went into the fourth branch of government, talking about the national security?
I haven't read it yet, but I have it. Yeah.
Wow, you have to read that article, bro. That is probably one. He and I are actually going to dissect that. We're probably going to do some videos and make some videos on that, just taking from that on that vein, because it is extremely powerful. I mean, when the way that guy laid it out, it's going to be it. I mean, talk about a usurpation of the Constitution. It's essentially everything that has come into being all at one time, and 9/11 was the pretext. So,
And Brady has a saying that I've come to start using actually, and that is all wars are banker wars.
100%. Well, this isn't really a war, but the thing that the thing that they're talking about in that article, it's not really a war. It was control, and that actually might be something that would get Karen Karen to maybe shift her opinion on the legitimacy of 9/11. Karen from
matter of fact,
Corona.
she tried to call me or email me. I can't remember. I didn't get back to her yet. So yeah, I think she tried to call me the other day, and I need to get back to her.
Well, it's 3:02, so if you want to,
yeah, we could do that.
Yeah,
that's what we're here for, right?
That's right. Talking Constitution.
Yeah, you talk about the different health issues. It's funny because I got back from being out of town, and a few days while we were gone, the shower our son and grandkids use started to leak. After we got back, they started leaking their sink. Then their sink bowl started to droop. Then a few days after that, our handle stopped working on our shower. And then a few days after that, our sink went out. And I'm like, well, they all happened at once, man. It was like, my plumbing is trying to tell me something. So right. We had plumbers here yesterday to just fix all that stuff. We've been band-aiding it for like over 30 years. And finally, we're like, you know what? We're just going to do the whole shebang. Let's just say my wallet is very much lighter today. Wow, plumbing can get expensive, brother. But anyway, all right. and then I've got a toothache, so I got a wisdom tooth I get rid of here.
Thank you, Jody.
I got all my wisdom teeth until now. One of them turned on me. But anyway, all right. Welcome. 25th Amendment. You guys heard about the 25th Amendment. We hear it all the time, right? They wanted to use it against Trump. They wanted to use it against Biden. What did they mean by the 25th Amendment? I'm going to get this mic a little bit closer to me here. Move things around a little. There we go. I think I don't know about optics or if it sounds better, but it just doesn't feel right.
You're fine. I'm going to turn my video off because I'm grimacing in pain and I don't want to. So
I don't want everybody to see you contort your face into all kinds of ugly.
It's pretty brutal today. I'm not having a very good day today.
Well, it's a good thing I'm doing all right. Hey, nothing that ibuprofen can't solve for me anyway. All right, so welcome. Amendment 25. This is the end of the Constitution today. We got amendments 25, 26, 27. We will start over again after next week's quick foray into the monetary system and Federal Reserve. And Alan Myers, a good friend of mine, one of the smartest people I know when it comes to, let me rephrase that, the smartest person I know when it comes to monetary systems and the Federal Reserve. In fact, you heard Ron mention Brady earlier, and Brady has become a good friend. Alan's so far ahead on this stuff, even Brady learns from him, all right? And Brady's one of those big brain people. So I'm happy to have Alan grab the reins next week. The timing is perfect because I'm supposed to be out of state anyway. So there wouldn't have been a Constitution class had it not have timed out that way. It just so happened to time out perfectly. So 25th Amendment, you hear all the time, we're going to use the 25th Amendment on Trump or on Biden. Well, let's talk about that. Let's understand what it says, what it means, how it can be used, if it can be used. See, against Trump, I didn't see it being used. Against Biden, possible. We'll see. So the beginning 25th Amendment, in case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. That's the first time it's that clearly stated in the Constitution. In the other parts of the Constitution, it says things like, will act as president, things like that. But it straight out says, shall become president. No question. Those questions, when it came to Woodrow Wilson, and in this case, Kennedy, the reason for the 25th Amendment was, what if Kennedy had survived? Then what would they have done when Kennedy was assassinated? There wasn't really provision that said for sure that Johnson was president. He was to act as president. So the 25th Amendment, because of Kennedy's assassination, was written to, clarify things, make sure that it's understood what to do in case these things happen. So in the case of removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Very clear, no questions to ask. Section 2, whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon current confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. Whenever there's a vacancy for the vice president, any vacancy, any reason, including if that vice president just became president. Now there's a vacancy, the president then nominates the new vice president. Congress, both houses, vote on confirmation, not just the Senate. Senate typically would confirm everything else, but in this case, both houses confirm. So it takes both houses to be good with whoever the choice is. In the case of Nixon, what had happened is he resigned, and it says here, in case of the vacancy, death or resignation, vice president becomes president. And what had happened was Spiro Agnew, the vice president, had originally resigned. So Nixon nominated Ford to be the new vice president. Congress approved it. Then when Nixon resigned, Ford became president, and then Ford then nominated the replacement for vice president. And if I remember properly, was it John Rockefeller Jr. or something like that, I think? But anyway.
Nelson Rockefeller Jr. But Nelson Rockefeller Jr., I think he resigned, and then Spiro Rockefeller, I think, was the VP for the first term, and then Agnew was the second term, and then he resigned, or maybe it was vice versa. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, Spiro Agnew was the one that resigned and had to be replaced, and Ford became that replacement. I'm trying to remember who Ford nominated to replace him as vice president.
I think.
But anyway, way back long ago, I'm sure the history book somewhere will tell you. Because there's a handful of things they haven't changed in the history books, a handful. But anyway, so that's what happened. So no more president, vice president becomes president. No more vice president, the new president or the existing president nominates who is to replace the vice president. Now, if you look back in history, there has been moments in history where we didn't have a vice president. We lost our vice president. The vice president was never replaced. So that's happened a handful of times in history too. Personally, I have a real problem with that because remember, the vice president isn't just supposed to be like, the president's yes man. I mean, that's the way it's treated now. Remember that the vice president is president of the Senate. They're supposed to be an active member of the U.S. Senate. Unfortunately, in today's politics, the only time you hear about the vice president being active in the Senate is if it's a tie vote or it's a close vote, because their vote then is the tiebreaker. But typically the vice president, as president of the Senate, is supposed to be active in the Senate, wield the gavel in every meeting, the whole bit. All right. Section 3 of Amendment 25.
Real quick, Nelson Rockefeller was Ford's vice president.
Okay, so I was right. It was a Rockefeller, just wasn't the Rockefeller I thought.
That should tell you everything you need to know about Gerald Ford.
Yep.
Just saying.
Or the people that was pulling his strings.
Or that.
Yeah, because I mean, if you want to judge Ford by his ability to walk up steps onto an airplane or walk on a golf course, he doesn't rank too much far below Biden.
Correct. He was pretty illiterate. Or not illiterate, but he was pretty dumb.
Yeah, or at least he came across that way. I mean, if he had brain cells, they weren't making themselves known.
They have.
All right.
Anyway,
Section 3. Yeah, see what happens when you get a couple of old guys talking.
Yeah, just telling the Saturday Night Live skits. There's no shortage of Saturday Night Live skits about Gerald Ford.
Oh yeah, Ford was a favorite. Oh yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All right. Ford and Bush, I think, were the two that they had the most fun with.
I think that was Quayle.
Well, they had fun with Quayle too, but Bush as president, they had a lot of fun with him. Junior Bush. But anyway, Section 3, whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. So if the president says, you know what, I'm in a temporary situation, I can't do my job, so here's my written declaration, and the vice president is going to act as president. The vice president is not president. They're acting as president. This happened when Ronald Reagan was shot and he had to go in for the surgery. And he wrote and signed a written declaration giving Bush the powers to act as president while he was going through his surgery, while he was recovering. And then when he was recovered, then he had a written declaration to the contrary and reassumed his powers. So that's when that clause was used, or one of the recent times it was used. For those of you who are old guys like Ron and I, you'll remember, or you may remember, you may not, that when Ronald Reagan did that, George Bush, his vice president at the time in his second term, was in China at the time that he was given the authority to be acting president. Alexander Haig, assuming that if the vice president was out of country, that meant that he couldn't assume the duties, assumed that he was acting president for a moment. And Alexander Haig said so. And he was wrong. You want to talk about Saturday Night Live jumping all over something? Alexander Haig became, as Secretary of State, became a laughingstock because of that moment in history where he thought just for a moment he was acting president and he wasn't. All right.
I didn't remember that. George Bush was in China at the time?
Uh-huh.
Go figure. I'll leave that one alone.
Well, you gotta remember that Clinton spent much more time with the Chinese even than Daddy Bush, even though Daddy Bush was quite the globalist.
Do you know who the first United States dignitary was into China when it got opened by Nixon?
Yeah, Nixon opened up talks with China. Go ahead. Who was the first dignitary that went to China?
George H.W. Bush, and they left with like 1,000 different factory contracts. Anyway, like I said, I'll digress.
Give me a chance to drink my Dr. Pepper. You are it's more than okay for you to do that. It just gives me a chance to hurry up down those slurps.
Yeah.
All right. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. Here's where it gets interesting. This is the Biden-Trump what if, could if, how do we get rid of if section. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. Now, notice it requires the vice president and either principal officers of the executive departments or another body in which Congress may by law provide, that's both houses. The vice president must be a part of that equation. That's why I never saw them using the 25th Amendment against Trump, because you may have your opinions about Pence, and I know a lot of people do, and most of them are not positive. But one thing I can say about Pence is he was not going to lead the charge to unseat Trump as being unfit to be president. And the vice president is required to participate in that type of activity. Now, with Biden, well, I know the Bidens and the Harrises are not exactly best friends. I know that the Harrises don't exactly get along with the Obamas or the Clintons. And I would not be surprised if Harris would love to pull a little funny bone there to get Biden out and put herself in as president. But she would need either most of the principal officers of the departments or a body put together by Congress to assist her. She could not do it on her own. So in the case of Trump, it wasn't going to happen because Pence wouldn't participate. In the case of Biden, it likely won't happen because the vice president will participate, but the other body may not because they don't like Harris. So there we go. Now, there's more, because what if after they submit that the president's not capable, the president says, whoa, wait a second, I'm fine. What the hell's going on here? That's the next part. Thereafter, when the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmits within 4 days the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. In other words, okay, so the VP and whatever group they get together says, hey, he can't do his job. The president says, I can, and I will, and I'm gonna continue, suck it. Then he can provide that paperwork and he hangs on. But if the vice president and gang wants to persist, they can. Now, if they do, then at that point, it says here, thereupon Congress shall decide the issue. So Congress is going to be like, both House Congress be like, okay, we got a problem here. We got a president who says he's fine and dandy and a vice president and gang who says he's not. So now Congress has to do their own observations, their own discussions, their own committees to determine which way this should go. So Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress, within 21 days after receipt of the latter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote, has to be 2/3, most of them a better than majority, super majority, determines by 2/3 vote of both houses that the president is unable to discharge powers and duties of the office, the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. In other words, in order to unseat the president, if the president says he's good, it not only requires the vice president and a chosen body to go after him, but if the president still refuses to move, it takes 2/3 of Congress. In other words, it's not easy. Do you think they're going to get 2/3 of Congress to remove Biden if Harris decides Biden should be removed and Biden decides to, not that he's sure which room he's in usually, but he decides to respond, hey, I'm okay and I'm not going anywhere? So the 25th Amendment is a very difficult tool to use. So when people talk about using the 25th Amendment to remove a president, understand it's not this easy, quick mutiny. There's a lot of requirements here. There's a lot of people who have to be approving of it. And if the president decides he don't want to budge, it gets even messier. And it's going to ultimately require 2/3 of Congress, both houses, in order to get rid of him. And remember also in that equation, among those who must be against the president and want him removed, one of those people has to be the vice president. So if you've got a good relationship between the president and the vice president, it's likely not going to happen. So that's that part of the 25th Amendment. I hope it makes more sense to you now. I'm going to finish reading it because there is a little bit more here, but you basically hopefully got the gist here. Let's see. Otherwise, the president shall resume the powers and duties of his office. So, yeah, that was it. So president, if he's unfit, if he knows he's unfit, and the vice president and either the principal officers of most of the departments or another body that Congress creates, that's both houses. When I say Congress, I mean both houses, gets together and says, hey, president, you're unfit. If the president says, you know what, you're right, go ahead, do what you got to do. The vice president assumes the duties. Then the president has a choice to either resign or just allow the vice president to continue to act as president, and then he'll be president in name only. But if the president says, nope, you guys are nuts, I'm good, what's wrong with you? You're trying to remove me? What is this, a mutiny? I'm fine. And he writes that to Congress. He hangs on to his office. And it ends unless the vice president and that group that they chose, whoever the vice president chose, decides to continue a second try with written declaration. If that's the case, now you got two sides that are up against each other. Nobody's budging, then Congress decides. And it takes 2/3 of Congress to get rid of the president. Otherwise, the president stays president, regardless of how good the argument is that the vice president and the vice president's allies might have. Once again, I hope that's clear as can be. It's not an easy process. Now, that said, it doesn't mean it can't be used. No, it has not been used to my knowledge. But it's a tough process.
Joe
is a relatively new amendment. Remember, when I say to my knowledge, it hasn't been used. I add to my knowledge often because there are sometimes things I don't know about, but in this case, it has not been used yet.
Joanne asked about what about a cognitive test? Would what if a
still comes down to whether or not the vice president, the president, it doesn't matter. They could prove he's out of his mind, but if he says I'm still okay,
then they have to they
still have to go through that process.
They have to go through the process. Okay.
Yeah. The hell with your cognitive test, he says. Well, yes, it's going to Congress. Congress may make their decision based on that, or they may not. But yeah, it doesn't matter. Test them all you want. Ultimately, it comes down to, is he willing to go away quietly? If not, then it's going to go to Congress to make that decision, and it's got to be at least 2/3 to get rid of him.
As I recall, didn't Trump do like one of those cognitive tests and it came back like like a super high score, like a perfect score?
Yeah, he did that just to shut them up.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't going to shut them up, but it was good for the supporters to see.
Yeah. Dude's a bright dude. He's got more energy than anybody I know, and he's much older. Him and Clinton are pretty close the same age. You tell me, show me which one is in better shape. You know what my answer is? See what evil does to you? When you're a Clinton, you're evil. Look what it does to you. Look how bad they look. That's what evil does to you. So children, don't be evil and you'll live a long, healthy life. All right. All right, let's move on to the 26th Amendment. 26th Amendment. You remember, well, you may not remember. Some of us may remember. Old enough to fight, old enough to vote. See, the founding fathers, and this is interesting too, to me. The founding fathers considered you a man at 13, or 12, actually. The average age of college entrance during the time of the founders was 13. But you could not vote until you were 21. The founders came up with that. 21. Even though those kids were so advanced and even going to college as teenagers, they could not vote till they were 21. That was the voting age. Something about 21 that the founders picked. And that was the voting age until the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, old enough to fight, old enough to vote. They were pushing for it to drop to 18. You know why they wanted to drop the voting age 18. Nixon was so popular, the Democrats couldn't win. So they had to figure out a way to get more voters, and they had not figured out illegal aliens yet. So they decided to propose an amendment that would be very popular because they had pushed this through the academia and through entertainment system, entertainment industry. Old enough to fight, old enough to vote. You had to be 18. And of course, everybody that was between 18 and 21 were anti-war Democrats. What a way to get more voters. And then after this, they went into place, they still lost to Nixon. But 26th Amendment, July 1st, 1971. The right of the citizen of the United States, the right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. I hate that last sentence, and it's in a lot of the amendments that the legislature, the Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. Who's the enforcement arm of the government? The president and the executive branch. They're the ones that executes the law. This idea that Congress can enforce, they're not supposed to enforce. That's not their job. They make law, they modify law, they repeal law. That's their job. Enforcement, execution of the law, that's the president. Adjudicating law, in other words, applying it to the cases they hear, giving sentencing, punishment, that's the judicial branch's job. This idea that it's where it says Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation, I hate that sentence. I also hate the fact that it says the right of citizens of the United States to vote. I don't believe that voting's right, even though it says so 5 times in the Constitution. I believe it's a privilege. It's a privilege of citizenship. Just because somebody exists doesn't mean they have a right to vote in my election.
Well, I think that the right to vote, as the founders were talking about, was how they
never used the word right.
Okay. Well, I thought you said they did 5 times.
No, I said it says it's right 5 times in the Constitution. I did not say they put it there. It's all in amendments. 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, 19th Amendment, 24th Amendment, and the 26th Amendment.
Okay.
In fact, there was a gentleman who wrote a book called Rights and Privileges, and he lists voting as a privilege. He was a chief justice, not chief justice, a justice on the Supreme Court in the late 1700s, early 1800s. His name was Bushrod Washington. Yes, the nephew of George Washington. And he said in his book, voting is a privilege.
That is a very interesting point that I did not know. I'm glad you said that, because now that actually makes me ponder, because I thought when you talked about it, I thought you were alluding to it being a right in terms of like the founding fathers. But if I wouldn't have
They
said
never
that,
said it was a right.
if I wouldn't have said that, you wouldn't have said anything. Wow.
Well, I
Wow.
would have, but I eventually explained that it's in later amendments. But yeah, they never said it was a right. They said it was a privilege. And in Article 4 talks about immunities and privileges. A privilege, because if it was a right, then how is it that they were saying it was okay for the states to determine only property owners could vote? Well, then it's obviously not a right. It's a privilege. It was a privilege of property owners and citizens.
And that's my point. That's my point. That's where I was going to go, because I was just saying, if they made it a right, then it was a right based on how they defined it with property ownership. So, but you clarified that before I even got to that point. That's interesting. And
A lot of people don't think about that.
No, and I never had.
And that's the reason why the Democrats do what they do with the vote. It's a right to vote. Therefore, anyone can vote because it's a right. And if it's a right, everybody has it, including illegal aliens.
Let me speak for you, Doug. That is the purpose of this class, to educate people on what was in the Constitution at the beginning. And I humbly implore you that when you talk about this in the future, to make note of that. This is the first time that I've heard that. And we've gone through the
I bring it up often, but I may not have brought it up around you before. I don't know. Right. Or maybe you just don't remember.
Possibly, but I think I would have remembered that.
Yeah. I've actually talked about it quite a bit lately, because I am sick and tired of people. My rights, my rights, my rights. Do you know what your rights are? Do you know what that means when you say my rights, my rights, my rights? And voting is not a right. It's a privilege. It's a privilege of citizenship. And it's a privilege that can be earned. It's a privilege that can be taken away. So that's why felons are not supposed to be able to vote. If it was a right, well, then felons should be able to vote. If it's a right, well, then anyone can vote.
Well,
it's a privilege.
I know. Anyway, well, I know felons that vote. So
yeah, they're all Dodgers fans, as a matter of
fact. Yes, they are. And Raider fans and Laker fans.
Yeah, the Dodgers are like big in the prison system. I have a friend of mine who used to be a prison guard. I have to ask him about that. But anyway, something else real quick I wanted to bring up before I get on to the 27th Amendment. Because we're talking about Alan Myers and his presentation that he'll be giving you guys next week. There's also a video out there that a friend of mine made named Brady. Have you seen Brady's video yet, where he filled in for me while I was out?
I have.
It was done very well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have access to the chat room?
I do.
If you can find that Rumble link, put it in there. If not, I'll send it to you.
Send it. No, I think he. You know what? I have it on my phone.
Yeah, do me a favor, because those of you who are watching in the chat room, I want you to check this out, this video out. And then those of you who are not, and you're like, oh man, I want to see it. No problem. Here's what we're going to do. The title of it is The Dystopian History of Money and Banking. It's on Rumble, rumble.com. The Dystopian History of Money and Banking by the War Hamster.
There it is. I got it.
So look up the War Hamster at Rumble and his video.
It's Brady 33.
Oh, is it Brady 33? He's not under War Hamster there?
Which he may not know that when you upload videos that there's like you have a handle and then a user. Anyway, he probably doesn't know that.
Okay, well, I'm Brady 33, War Hamster. The Dystopian History of Money and Banking. It was a really good job. Carlsbad class, when I was out of town the other day, a couple weeks ago, he filled in for me actually at that class. He asked if instead of the class not meeting, if it'd be okay if he did a presentation on the monetary system, and if our good friend Todd did a presentation on the penal system, which they did not record that one because as a former cop, former corrections officer, he told a couple stories that he believed should not get public consumption. So that part of it is not available, but the part about the monetary system by Brady is. All right, we have one amendment left, 27th Amendment. 27th Amendment is an interesting animal because it's a part of the original Bill of Rights. See, amendments don't expire unless an expiration is given. For example, if you go back to just for kicks and giggles, go back to the 20th Amendment, and in section 6 of the 20th Amendment, it says, this article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states within 7 years from the date of its submission. So it had a 7-year lifespan. If it didn't get ratified within 7 years, it was dead. It was done. That's the end of it. The Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA, matter of fact, got a 7-year lifespan on it. Then when it got to the 7 years, they proposed a 3-year addition and expanded it to 10 years. It still didn't ratify it, so it died. But prior to the modern amendments, the founders and a lot of the people during the 1800s did not put expiration dates or time limits, should I say, on these proposals. So the 27th Amendment being one of them, it was a part of the original Bill of Rights back in 1789. It wound up getting ratified May 7th, 1992 by the vote of Michigan. It was required at that point to receive the 3/4 ratification of the number of existing states. So in other words, as more states were added, the requirement increased. The states re-reviewed it, realized it was still out there, and they decided to ratify it, Michigan being the final vote it needed. And so the 27th Amendment became an amendment in 1992, proposed as part of the Bill of Rights on September 25th, 1789. And but it was not ratified with the original 10 amendments, which became effective December 15th, 1791. Here it is. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. Every 2 years, we have an election of representatives and a third of the senators. The idea was that these people in office could not vote themselves a raise. They were voting for a raise the next Congress. So if they wanted the raise, they had to win re-election. The idea was to try to slow down or stamp out corruption. We don't want these knuckleheads just giving themselves raises. But if they offer a raise, and gosh, their opponents wind up taking over, well, then they gave their opponents a raise. So at least that was the idea. So that's the 27th Amendment. Now, there was 12 amendments that was sent out to the states as a part of the original Bill of Rights. The first 10 became the Bill of Rights. The 11th one became the 27th Amendment. What about the other one? There's one more out there, and it doesn't have an expiration date, and I hope it never gets ratified. Because what it says is that there shall be one representative per 30,000. Wow. Think about how messy that could get. Let's see here. Let me pull out my handy dandy calculator. So what would you say the population of the United States is at this point? 325 million, is it?
About 330, 350 million, something like that, somewhere in that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say 330 million. 330 million divided by 30,000 That would put 11,000 members of the House of Representatives. Wouldn't you love to have 11,000 congressmen? No, I wouldn't. I'm glad there's a limit. I'm glad they said, whoa, we're gaining a lot of population. We better put a cap on how many Congress critters there can be. And they did this a little over 100 years ago when they put that cap. They didn't do a constitutional amendment. They should have. That's beside the point. But they did put a cap. But if the amendment that the 12th of the 12 that was submitted to the states way back with the Bill of Rights and was not ratified by the states because they were like, screw that. If it ever became a part of the Constitution, with your current population, you would have 11,000 members of the House of Representatives. One representative per 30,000. The idea, some people want that. The idea is, well, gosh, Doug, you know, matter of fact, John Cox, who ran for governor in California, that's how I originally met him. I met him long before he ran for governor. And he's been pushing this idea, not only at the federal level, but also at the state level, that there should be more representatives so that the districts are smaller, because the argument he says, and the argument by a lot of these people is, if they represent less people, they will be more likely to be in tune with their constituency. And my first response is, really? Then how do you explain city council members? They are representing less people than the Congress critters, and they're more corrupt in many cases than the Congress critters. City council's out of control. This idea that the less people they represent, the more likely they're going to listen, that's crazy. Because see, evil doesn't listen because they've got less people to listen to, or they think they're closer to the constituency. Evil is evil because evil is evil. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the size of the constituency. You'll want to fix Congress. You don't create more of those critters so that they represent less people. You want to fix Congress? You rip out the evil ones and replace them with virtuous people. But guess what? We don't have a virtuous society. How do you find virtuous leaders if you can't even get your basic societal mess under control? When you have a society that's so out of control, I mean, the biblical list of the way men will be in this time is extensive, and we fit all of them. Selfish. God, the list goes on, you know, in it for ourselves kind of thing. Arrogant, narcissistic type people. Our society is out of whack. Someone was telling me the other day, well, we got to figure out how to fix the hearts of these people. There's only a way to fix their hearts. That's with God, in my opinion. As long as we move away from being a godly society, we're in trouble. Go ahead.
Well, if you read the 45 Goals of Communism by Skousen,
they're all in play.
So they're all in play. I mean,
the list is in The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen.
Right. They're not all in play because some of them are no longer.
Well, this is true.
They're no longer.
They're all either in play or have been in play.
Right. They're no longer applicable. But you know, you look at that list. I mean, you know, when you understand what the communist version of the United States was and how they did it, the first thing they had to do was they had to remove God from society. The second thing they had to do was to take out the patriotism, and the third thing was they had to remove the nuclear family. And they've worked closely on all three. They rewrote the textbooks to demonize our founding fathers and you know, people throughout history who were patriots. You know, look at what, you know, the whole thing with the Johnson Amendment, that boy, they ran with the Johnson Amendment. As soon as the Johnson Amendment got passed, then the next thing you know, there's no more prayer in school. And then the next thing you know, they're pushing the homosexual agenda. And then the next thing you know, they're pushing abortion.
Don't forget abortion.
I just did. So, you know, and I don't want to be so hard and fast to say that, you know what, every single one, I could meet them halfway a little bit, but you know, when you just on an abortion standpoint, when what they want to do is it's what they claim it's for and what they're actually using it for are two entirely different things. They're using it as a birth control mechanism, and that's not what it was designed. That's not what it was supposed to be for. It was supposed to be for, you know, for
only
for
God is supposed to be the master of
right.
life and death. They
Well,
want to be the masters of life and death,
and you know
because
what?
there should be no God.
And to that point, I absolutely agree with you. So
Yeah. So, well, you said three things interestingly that are right on target. You said that they want to remove God, they want to remove patriotism, and they want to remove the family unit. Why? Because government is supposed to be your God. You're only supposed to be patriotic to government, right? January 6th was insurrection. Why? Because they were against the government. And then finally, let's see, God, patriotism, family. Well, only government should be your family. They should determine what's going on right now. Oh, parents, you're not supposed to have say over your children.
that's right.
Government is. The school system. We've been hearing that lately a lot, haven't we? It is all about becoming God. God's in the way. What are they going to do with the Christians over this vax mandate? Because the Christians are the ones that are standing in their way. Because see, the Christians can see the truth. And there's non-Christians can see the truth. I don't want to leave out some of the people who actually have half a brain, and it's not because of faith. But for the most part, by and large, it's the Christian community that is standing against this garbage.
It's people that have the Christian values that are the ones that are standing in the way the most. But we've had that discussion, and I'll keep my real thoughts to myself.
Well, thank the Lord that the Bible does not say. Thank the Lord that the Bible does not say, by how you believe in prophecy, thou shalt enter heaven. Or be saved.
No, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about the mind. No, it's about the mindset of wanting God to do it for you. Or
there is that too. You and I are actually in agreement on that one.
Yeah. You know,
I've said this in my speeches. I usually get a pretty good cheer about it.
Yeah.
I am sick of Christians saying, "Oh, I'm just waiting for the Lord." You're fighting prophecy.
Exactly.
No, you fight. First of all, in Revelation, it says you occupy till his return. That means that you fight the good fight. You stand firm.
Exactly.
You don't know when he's returning anyway. Only the Father does.
Right.
Well, yeah, but Doug, all the signs. Okay, fine. But does all the signs mean today, tomorrow, or 4 years from now, 20 years from now? You don't know.
Right.
So stand firm in liberty, stand firm in virtue, stand firm in what's right. Because you must fight the good fight, first of all. Second of all, I'm a firm believer that if a people changes their ways, God will
restore their land
and change the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? We're going to push this back a little bit. The Ninevites or whoever it is, I'm going to go ahead and restore their land. If we have a great awakening, we are restored. And I believe a great awakening may be on the horizon.
Well, great awakening is already happening. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I put out an article on my email. If you're not on my email list, you want to be on my email list, go to politicalpistachio.com on the right-hand side. There's a maroon button, hit that to join the email list. But, and I basically put in the article, hey, be encouraged. We're winning. Mm-hmm. They're against the ropes. We're winning. Don't believe their propaganda.
Right. Agreed.
Our problem is we get down. Oh, yeah, but you're believing their lies, their propaganda. They put out the propaganda and you're going, okay. Don't believe their garbage. What they have to say is crap. You still there?
I'm here. I was just letting you go. I didn't realize you were done. I was gonna piggyback on one of the things you said, and this is, not only, we are commanded to fight.
Yeah,
we're commanded to fight.
It's our duty.
It's our duty. It's our duty to fight, to stand up. And
as Christians and as Americans.
Exactly. I mean, so it's twofold. We have a duty and responsibility to our country, and a duty and responsibility, we have a duty and responsibility as citizens to our country to be a patriot to our country, and we have a duty and responsibility to God to be faithful to His commandments, and He wants us to stand up for righteousness. And with respect, I think it was Joanne said they're trying to tear the Constitution down, but that's both the Republicans and the Democrats. That's not just Democrats. It boils my blood when people just absolve.
Well, they all feed from the same trough.
Exactly.
Like I was telling someone today, so how come I can't get the Republicans?
Sorry, Joanne, that wasn't directed at you.
Because that's where they get their money from.
Yeah. I can't take it when people absolve the Republicans. I mean, the Republicans are no different. I'll tell you what, you read that article from a conservative treehouse that Brady, which I was talking about at the beginning. Holy crap. The Gang of Eight and all those people, and Marco Rubio and
I'm not a Rubio fan.
Oh,
sure.
Dude, man, that guy is like, they came up as the Tea Party people. Yeah, right. No, they're just as deep state as they're as deep state as deep state is. It's and
well,
Mitch McConnell. Oh, anyway, I digress.
Well, when it comes to the Republican Party, the platform is closer to what I believe, and there's a handful of them that are decent. That's the reason why I still hang on to the Republicans. But you got to remember, even the ones that you think are good ones, they're receiving their funding, they're receiving their kudos, they're receiving their pats on the back from the same place that the Democrats are. So that's why, well, I don't understand why the Republicans weren't willing to do that, because they don't want to sacrifice their money.
Exactly.
Or their position. Even if they're not the evil ones, they are in on it in one way or another. They've got a feeding tube stuck in there somewhere. And it's funny because I don't like using the term political parties. I like what James Madison called them. James Madison didn't call it political parties. He called them factions. I think factions is a better term. The problem is the factions are, lately been factionless because they are all about each other. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the two parties are exactly alike. They're not. There are some slight differences, and there are some good guys in one of the parties. But that line between them is getting thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner.
Well,
and I'm expecting it to be gone real soon.
I don't. Have you ever gone through that Devolution series?
I am in the process.
Yeah, he talks. I met him in Las Vegas. Connected him with 3 or 4 people, and he in there he talks about how the Republican Party was essentially co-opted by, for the sake of this video, Team 17, and they forced some of them out. They forced some of these guys out, and then they were using it. So, in terms of siding with a party, the Republican Party is technically the good guys, because they've put the good people into the Republican Party. Although I would argue that there's some people in the Democrat Party that, I have to say that I'm been pleasantly surprised at Kyrsten Sinema for doing some of the things she's done.
Pleasantly surprised, but not
that she's perfect. Not that she's perfect, but she's not.
Well, what she did is she's proven, while she is a Democrat, she also does have a soul.
Right.
Most of them have sold their souls, but she has proven she still has hung on to her soul.
Yeah.
I really don't give any kudos to any of the Democrats per se.
No.
A handful of Republicans, but the problem is I got more fingers than Republicans I like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
You're preaching to the choir, man.
Yeah, it drives me nuts because I want to say, all right, GOP, you did a good. I want to do that. I want to say that, but they keep failing me.
Yeah,
they keep failing us. And that's the reason I don't tell people I'm a Republican. Now I am registered as a Republican because if I have to vote for a party, I'm going to pick that one because it's closer to what I believe. But what I tell people is I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I am a constitutionalist. I'm a Christian and a constitutionalist first. And I don't care who it is. If they're not standing firm and in line with the original intent of the Constitution, I want nothing to do with them. And I've had women's Republican groups actually almost not allow me to be a speaker at their meetings, because I've said foul things about certain Republicans, and
Oops.
don't forget that Reagan's 11th Amendment. You say, don't say anything that bull. If the Republican is a piece of crap, I don't care what comes after the name. I don't care if it's an R. I don't care if it's a D. I don't care if it's a cross. If they are acting in a manner that's outside the law and outside the Constitution, I will be hard on them. I will say what I'm going to say about them. I really don't give a crap if they have an R after their name. And Ken Calvert is one of those people that I've been very harsh with. Well, everybody says, well, Doug, he's a good Republican. That's not necessarily reassuring. So, yeah, I'm a constitutionalist first. And if you want to really screw with somebody's mind, far left is 100% government. Far right is anarchy. Constitution, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Hang on a sec. Constitution is dead center. So you really want to screw with somebody's mind? You tell them you're a classical centrist. Now what? A classical centrist. Constitution, dead center. When they hear classical centrist, that it confuses them. They don't know what that means. And then it starts conversation. So there you go. All right, we're all done with the Constitution. We will start over in a couple of weeks. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you. I won't be here next week, but Alan Myers and Mr. Ron Partain will be, folks. So be on the lookout for the show. You can have fun with it. Mr. Constitution has been hijacked for 1 week. I don't care. Have some fun with it. But I'm actually out of state. Plus, also, I'm going to have a tooth pulled probably in a few days. So I won't be probably in the greatest shape next week anyway. Virginia's doing all the driving since I'm having that tooth pulled like literally right before we leave.
Well, I hope that goes well. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I've got cats that are fighting.
Cats that are fighting.
Cats that are fighting.
That's why you get dogs.
Well, when you get dogs, they pee on your furniture and floor, and
not mine.
And bark outside.
My doggies are good boys.
Yes, we'll see. But anyway, well,
and you know what I love about dogs?
Well,
see a cat, you slap it upside the head, and it's pissed off at you for a week. You slap the dog upside the head, you leave, you come back, he's still excited to see you.
Yes, right. So, anyway, all right, brother. Well, I will see you Thursday because I'm going to come meet Alan.
All right, we'll see you in person the day after tomorrow. We'll see all of you guys in 2 weeks, but next week be here for Alan Myers and Ron Partain and the Federal Reserve and the monetary system. And then 2 weeks, we start with a little bit of history in the preamble.
Yep, sir.
All right, brother.
All right, man. It was good fun, and we'll you guys tell some of your friends and stuff, because I know that for a lot of you that have been edified by these, it's a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more willingness to stick with it when you come in at the beginning, because you get to lay the foundation. And when you come in in the middle, you're like, okay, this is cool and everything, and I'm learning, but it's so much more impactful when you start from square one.
All right, so I am out the door, and also, you got new books coming out. Christmas time is coming up. So stay in touch also, because you need to know when these books are available so that you can buy them as Christmas presents.
Yeah.
All right, have a good one. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. We'll see you in 2 days, and